I was hired to hunt a monster, but it turned out to be the one haunting me all along. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It was supposed to be a simple job, just a hunt. They told me stories, whispers that wrapped around the town like a thick fog. Shadowy figures moving in the night, children disappearing, the scent of decay lingering in the air. I thought I could handle it. I was wrong. My routine was ordinary, a cup of coffee, a dull morning staring at the newspaper. The headlines screamed of another missing person, another victim claimed by the darkness. But I shrugged it off like a pesky bug bite. Life goes on, right? Little did I know, the darkness wasn't just a background noise, it was coming for me. I stepped into the old house, the door creaking like it was protesting my entrance. The air was cold, biting at my skin, as if the house itself was alive and harboring secrets. Shadows danced along the walls, teasing me, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. The floorboards groaned under my weight, a warning, maybe. I could feel my heart thumping, each beat echoing in the silence. It felt wrong. Every room was filled with memories, unease lurking in every corner. I could almost hear the whispers, faint, like a distant echo from another time. My breath hitched as I moved deeper inside. Something shifted behind me. I spun around, every nerve ending tingling. Nothing there, just the darkness, and the feeling that it was watching. The tension wound tighter. Strange noises echoed. A thud, a scrape. I could feel it in my bones. My mind screamed to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. Laughter echoed, shrill and mocking. It wasn't the laughter of the living, it was a sound that chilled the very marrow of my bones. The room began to close in on me. I caught my reflection in a broken mirror, eyes wild, a stranger looking back. My chest tightened. I heard another thud, this time right behind me. I turned, heart racing, breath quickening. Was it in the shadows? Was I the prey now? Then came the silence. It wrapped around me like a noose. Slowly, the door to the basement creaked open, revealing a dark abyss. Fear shot through me. I felt the urge to run, yet something compelled me to step closer. A rush of air, cold and stale, brushed past me like a warning. I crept closer, breath hitching as moonlight flickered over the stairway. At that moment, my world shifted. I heard its voice, a low growl blending with a murmur. It was too close, I could feel its presence. My heart raced wildly, pounding in my ears. I was not the hunter, I was haunted. I took one step back, and something shifted in the darkness. A figure emerged, looming, twisted. My pulse quickened, terror gripping my throat, a scream ready to burst forth. Just as I opened my mouth to scream, the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I recoiled as the door slammed, the sound reverberating in the air like a death knell. My heart thudded violently against my ribcage. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped inside, the weight of the house pressing down on me. The figure in the shadows shifted, its shape flickering, grotesque and fluid. It felt like I was in a nightmare, but this was real. Every instinct screamed for me to flee. Welcome home, it hissed, voice coated in malice, each syllable dripping with the essence of depravity. The shadows around it twitched, caressing its form like devout followers. I couldn't see its face clearly, just movement, a grotesque ballet choreographed in fear. I turned to the door. There was no handle, no latch, just an expanse of wood that felt alive, pulsating like a heartbeat. The air thickened, filled with the stench of rot and decay. It clawed at my throat. My fingers grasped for the darkness, desperate for an escape, but it felt as if the very walls were closing in, whispering secrets I had no right to hear. "Leave this place," I whispered, hardly recognizing my own voice. The laughter erupted again, louder now, a cacophony of cruel delight echoing through the old house. I stumbled backward, bumping into a piece of furniture that felt oddly warm, as if imbued with the lifeblood of the house itself. A shiver raced down my spine. "Oh, you think you can leave?" Its voice was a deadly hiss, pulsating like a heartbeat in the silence that followed. "They never leave, not once darkness claims them." I fought to form thoughts, struggling against the fear that gnawed within me. My mind raced through the stories I'd heard, the missing children, the tales of joy turned to dread. Had they all ended up here? Were their souls somehow allied with this entity? I felt sick with realization. Before I could react, the air thickened, a force slammed against my chest, pushing me hard against the wall. My breath whooshed out as I gasped for air. In that moment of terror, I saw eyes in the darkness, countless eyes, glimmering like shards of glass. They watched, hungry and expectant, waiting for the inevitable. "Join us," it purred, and this time, I felt its influence rippling through my mind, tugging at the strands of my sanity. The shadows contorted, becoming a tapestry of tortured faces, all pleading, all screaming silently for release. A surge of defiance flared within me. I had to escape. I swept my arm toward a nearby bookshelf, knocking it over in a frenzy, the sound thunderous in the cramped space. The weight of the fallen wood momentarily broke the connection, the wall sighed, and for the first time, I saw a sliver of light creeping through a crack above the door. Instinct kicked in. I dashed toward it, the floor vibrating underfoot, almost alive, as if it sought to trip me. The entity shrieked, a banshee wail that sliced through my resolve, echoing with rage. "You cannot deny your fate." I leapt toward the crack, reaching for the warmth of the light, feeling it pulse against my skin. It felt like hope until the shadows surged around me, wrapping me in their cold, suffocating embrace. I would not succumb. I clawed at the darkness, manifesting all the strength I had left, but as I fought, a wave of despair washed over me. The basement seemed to yawn wider, and more ready to consume me. Then I heard it, a faint whisper unlike the others, a voice so familiar, my heart stopped in my chest. "Help me!" All my resolve shattered. I turned, heart pounding as I recognized the voice, missing child, one I had heard about in desperate news reports weeks earlier. They hadn't disappeared. They were here, trapped, begging for rescue. The entity seized the moment. The shadows twisted closer, forcing me down into the depth of a darkness that felt alive. They pulsed against my flesh, sinking into my mind. I was losing myself to the whispers, drowning. Then came another voice, deeper, more sinister, echoing from the far dark corner of the basement. "They're all mine now," I screamed, but my voice was swallowed in the abyss. The ground quaked as the shadows danced wildly, and in that moment, I realized my fight had only just begun. I felt a pulling sensation at my core, and then everything went black. I awoke, gasping for breath, not in the basement but on the floor of the manor's living room. Had it all been a nightmare? But beyond the shattered mirror, the cold floor, and the suffocating scent of decay, I saw the figure standing once more by the door. Its smile was ghastly, sharp as knives, and I remembered the child's whisper. "Help me!" But was it too late? As I stood up, feeling the fog of confusion lift, I heard the sound that froze my blood, a chorus of whispers, rising to a shriek. I turned, and the doors of the house swung wide open, revealing a night filled with not stars, but shadowed figures watching, waiting, hungry. My hands trembled as I realized the truth. I had opened the door to a nightmare far beyond anything I could comprehend. And what had once been a straightforward job had turned into a hunt for my very soul. "Welcome back," the figure whispered, voice thick with this gracious promise of darkness still to unfold. Suddenly, A hand shot out from the shadows, small and desperate, grasping at my clothes as I stumbled back, recognition flooding my vision. The child had returned, but their face was twisted in anguish. Run. They screamed, and for the first time, I understood. They were not just lost, they were seeking a way out, pulling me toward an unknown horror. I took a breath, heart pounding, and as I turned to bolt for the door, the darkness surged all around me like a tide, locking me in. The last thing I heard was the echo of the entity laughing, a sound that would haunt me forever, as I was consumed by the night. The oppressive silence choked me as I struggled against the tide of shadows. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but the weight of despair anchored me to the floor. The room seemed to expand and contract with malevolent glee, pulsating like the deadened heart of the entity that had stolen my breath. Desperate to break free from the invisible chains, I clawed my way towards the door, but it felt so impossibly far. The child's face lingered in my mind, twisted with terror, a look that twisted my gut into knots. "Run!" they'd cried, their voice like shattered glass. I looked back at them, but the shadows coiled eagerly, ready to snatch their prize. I needed to understand. I couldn't just leave. What kind of rescue was that? I stumbled into the living room, heart hammering like an echo in the darkness. The walls were lined with portraits, each face twisted in agony, their eyes tracking my every move. Had they once been alive? I could feel their despair saturating the air, and as the weight of their sorrow wrapped around me, the floorboards creaked beneath my frantic steps. "Help me!" The child's voice reverberated through the room, now a cacophony of sound, pulsing through the fabric of reality. It was everywhere, surrounding me like a ghostly choir, layering over each other, each voice more desperate than the last. Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer of light. It shimmered on the far side of the room, nestled against the base of the grand staircase. Hope ignited within me, igniting a flicker of courage. I bolted, the whispers morphing into frantic screams as the shadows recoiled, as if I dared to cross a boundary they had set. But just as I reached the staircase, a pair of cold arms shot out from the darkness, wrapping around my waist, pulling me back with a strength that felt unnatural. I screamed, thrashing wildly as I came face to face with a shadow-shaped figure, its features swirling in an endless loop of despair and anger. "Leave her," it echoed, voice a sickening blend of sweet and sinister, bubbling with fury as it glanced toward the child, who stood helplessly watching. "She belongs to me now." The child reached out, their small hand trembling. "No. You have to help me." Panic danced in their eyes, reflecting the chaos around us. I saw their mouth moving, silent screams breaking against the weight of the shadows, but a thick fog swallowed their words. With a primal instinct, I drove my elbow into the entity's gut, and as if startled, it recoiled just enough for me to break free. I sprinted up the staircase, each stair creaking underfoot, threatening to buckle beneath my weight. The house, alive with fury, roared around me, walls flexing as if trying to consume me whole. At the top, I flung myself into a hallway lined with doors, the scent of rot more pungent than ever. I had to find a way out. I hurled myself through the first door, crashing onto a dimly lit bedroom that reeked of mildew. The bed lay unmade, sheets twisted like the souls trapped by fate, and a massive window overlooked an expanse of blackness. I crossed to it, desperate, but as I pulled the wretched curtains open, they screamed. Banshee wails ricocheted along the walls, eliciting shrill laughter from somewhere deep within the bowels of the house. Cascading shadows poured through the broken window as if the night outside had seeped inside, claws of darkness slashing against the light of my world. I fell back, terrified, but I refused to succumb. Plunging down the hallway, I found myself in front of another door, and without thinking, I burst through it. This room was different. Chilling artifacts lined the walls. Old toys, rusted trinkets, broken dolls with eyes that seemed to follow me. A dusty rocking chair swayed slowly, as if stirred by ghostly hands, and then I realized it. Each object held an echo of suffering, memories of lives lost to the entity's insatiable hunger. But what caught my eye next froze my blood. A mirror, cracked and shrouded in shadows. I stumbled toward it, drawn in like a moth to flame. The surface gleamed momentarily, reflecting not just my terror-stricken face but a ghastly scene behind me, a parade of ghostly apparitions, children dressed in tattered clothes, tugging at my heartstrings. Their plaintive cries reached me, desperate hands clawing at the air. "Help us. Please." They faded in and out, revealing glimpses of their last moments trapped, tortured, all victims of this wretched place. The realization struck like a lightning bolt, they were all begging for rescue. And then it hit me. Shadow entity appeared in the mirror, relentless and hunched, its glowing eyes illuminating the depths of my soul. Its voice wrapped around me, a seductive whisper laced with poison. "They cannot be saved. They are my harvest, just as you soon will be." With a surge of adrenaline, I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind me, sealing my fate. The shadows leapt toward me, riding against my skin like serpents eager to pull me down into the abyss. The room twisted, the air crackling with malevolence. The laughter rang out once more, faint at first, then building into a symphony of madness as the walls closed in. I pressed against the door, my breath catching in my throat, but then the haunting cries wove together into a single voice, powerful and unyielding. "Join us." I lunged toward the mirror, reaching out to those lost souls, but with an explosive force, the glass shattered, spraying shards like daggers across the room. I felt the darkness swirl around me, pulling at my legs like a tide, and then the room plunged into silence. All at once, everything vanished: the children, the shadows, the malevolent entity. In their place stood the hallway once more, quiet but suffocatingly still. Confusion seized me, gnashing at my sanity. Had I escaped? I turned to leave, but the chilling realization that the house was shifting around me came crashing down. As I stepped into the hallway, an echo of a raspy breath filled the corridor. "Now you're one of us." I glanced back, dread clenching my heart, and saw the inviting shadows creeping once more, swelling with life. And at the far end of the hallway, the figure loomed larger than ever, its smile a gaping my one eternal promise of hell. Just as I stepped back, the walls trembled, and to my horror, I felt the floor ripple beneath me. Not just shadows, now faces emerged, countless eyes gazing at me, a mass of suffering trying to break free. I was not alone anymore. As they lunged toward me, a collective wail erupted, echoing loudly, intermingling with the sounds of my own heartbeat. It was too late. The pulse of despair reverberated through the walls, guiding the horde of tormented spirits with a singular focus. Clutching my head as if tightening an invisible vice around it, I staggered backward, dodging a vengeful swirl of shadows that surged toward me like dark water rising impossibly fast. The pressure grew more unbearable, with the children's faces merging to form a single, monstrous visage, their wide, hollow eyes filled with both anguish and promises of sorrow, mouths opening as if to scream but only releasing an inescapable silence. I spun around, desperate to find any exit, but every direction morphed into a mocking imitation of a safe haven. The twisted portraits lining the hallway now displayed their trapped souls, their mournful gazes zeroing in on me. Each brushstroke seemed to twitch, filling me with a deep sense of futility, a realization that escape was never an option. The house craved my very essence. "Please. Help us." It was there again, that ragged voice slicing through the clamor, the child's pleading now layered beneath the cries of others, echoing against the cold, horrific void. I pressed a palm against the crumbling wall beside me, searching for a crack or loose board, anything that would allow me to slip away from this waking nightmare. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, a doorknob, heavy and rusted. Hope flickered. With a violent twist, I yanked it open, expecting light, freedom, or at least a momentary reprieve. Instead, I was met by an abyssal darkness that swallowed sound and light, a primordial stillness that felt more dangerous than the chaos I was fleeing. "Come to me." The whisper coiled around my thoughts, seductive and dark, promising truth I dared not confront. The air thickened as supplication engulfed me, the ghost cries fading into a tentative harmony, as if I stood at the threshold of another realm altogether. Unable to resist, I took a step forward, only to feel that familiar, bone-chilling cold wrap around me, seeping deep into my bones. Chaos erupted as I wrenched back, slamming the door in a desperate bid to reclaim my fate. The shadows darted, howling in anger, retreating for a moment but regrouping with renewed fury, like a storm gathering swell. That primal instinct for survival ignited within me once more, and I bolted down the corridor. I raced toward yet another door, hoping against hope for sanctuary. This one burst open easily, leading into what appeared to be a child's room. Doors with cracked porcelain faces and glassy eyes grinned eerily at me from the shadows. The glow of a small nightlight flickered in the corner, illuminating fading posters plastered on the walls depicting fairy tales that seemed to mock me with their vibrant colors amidst the darkness. As I skidded to a halt, I noticed a loose patch of floorboards that seemed to differ from the rest. The very air around it thrummed with anxiety. My heart thundered, perhaps this was a hidden passage. I knelt and pried them loose, revealing a hollow space beneath an entrance into something darker below. The moment I peered inside, a chill gnawed at my spine, drawing me closer. A single item lay nestled within the child's teddy bear, its fabric stained with age and desperation. As I reached for it, a blinding pain shot through my hand, and I emitted an involuntary shout of agony. The bear erupted in breaths of gale-force whispers. "Join us," it intoned, its once cute eyes now swollen with malevolence. With a fierce yank, I withdrew my hand, stumbling backward as the walls seemed to pulsate with the sinister energy of awakened spirits. The voices crescendoed into a terror-laden symphony. Children's laughter morphed into shrieks, taking on malevolent echoes that rattled the very foundation of the house. I grasped for air, dizzy under the weight of horror, desperately appraising my options. The eerie glow of the nightlight flickered rapidly as if signaling danger, the shadows calling tighter, rearing like serpents ready to strike. And then, just as I turned to flee from the room, a wave of cold dreariness washed over me, rendering me immobile. The shadows advanced, and in that moment, I saw them faces emerging from the walls, twisted and contorted, crying out, their mouths forming silent screams as if trying to warn me and lure me at once. "Escape won't save you," the sinister voice whispered again, emanating from every corner. "You are mine." With newfound dread, I felt an unseen force wrap around my throat, constricting, squeezing the last remnants of hope out of me. The entity lunged forward. I could see its cold smile, an abyss of hunger, eclipsing everything. I braced myself, feeling the shadows press against my chest, pushing me down, suffocating me. As the darkness around me thickened into tangible despair, grappling for breath, I became aware of the ever-present child's face floating just beyond reach. "Don't let it take you," the child cried, their voice now rising above the cacophony, beacon of defiance amid the encroaching doom. Summoning every ounce of will, I turned my gaze back toward the cracked mirror, its surface swelling with visions of the past, of determination, of the life stolen by the same darkness that sought me. Suddenly, out of the shattered reflections emerged a distorted likeness of myself, trapped within the depths, as wide with terror as it morphed into something monstrous, a twisted mockery of what I could become. With one final lurch, I threw myself toward the mirror, hoping to disrupt the sinister pact forming both inside and outside of me. But as I collided with the glass, it shattered violently, shards erupting in a blinding flash, and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, the darkness had subsided, leaving only the chilling echo of my own breathing. I was enveloped in silence, disoriented and alone. But as I rose shakily to my feet, I realized, with a horror born of inevitability, that I wasn't alone. From the empty void behind me, a whisper wafted on the stale air, "You've returned at last." And then I felt them, too cold, small hands wrap around my ankles, sending a wave of electric dread coursing through me. The last thing I saw before the complete encasement of darkness was the face of the child, now contorted with a sinister grin, eyes glimmering with predatory hunger. I understood then I was not merely haunted, I was being transformed. The sensation of a cold grip around my ankles initiated a primal fear, a deep-seated dread, and I stumbled forward, the weight of the shadows pressing in on me from all sides. My heart pounded against my ribcage, urgent and frantic, as I tore at the air around me, desperate to disentangle from the apparitions clawing at my flesh. The child's sinister grin haunted me from the dimness, but I dared not look back. With sheer willpower, I surged forward out of the room, flinging myself back into the suffocating corridor where the twisting shadows slithered like smoke, taking on grotesque forms for which I had no names. The house creaked and groaned as if it was enjoying my torment, coaxing more wails and whispers from the very walls, and I only accelerated in response. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere was better than remaining entombed in that cursed space. Fumbling, I grabbed the edges of the door frames as I sprinted past them, seeking a hint of safety, a glimpse of hope. The air thickened around me like molasses, the whispers becoming urgent and raw, as if the house itself was begging me to stay to accept its offer of companionship in despair. Voices climbed over one another, urgent cries that crescendoed into a deranged cacophony. Where are you going? A sing-song voice called, drenched in malice. We just want to play. The vile invitation sent a jolt through me, shoving me to keep moving. I burst into another room, this one dimly lit by a single flickering light bulb swaying precariously from the ceiling. Dust motes floated languidly, caught in an unsettling dance, framing a scene that felt torn from a damaged memory. The room was filled with children's toys, board games, blocks, dolls. Each looked abandoned yet eerily intact, some even frozen in mid-action as if the children had just forgotten they existed. My dread froze me at the threshold as I caught sight of a small wooden table in the center. Sitting there was a delicate porcelain teapot, etched with bright red flowers and fine gold lining, with cups arranged neatly around it. It felt wrong, too pristine amidst the sinister decay. I stepped closer, my breath shallow, drawn to it as instinct compelled me to approach. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, and the distant sound of giggles began to echo, rising in chorus as if from unseen mouths. Would you like to join us for tea? The child's voice chimed again, now sweetly innocent yet undercut with sinister undertones. I quaked with revulsion but felt something deep within me answering the color-dark curiosity that gnawed at my sanity. Slowly, I reached toward the teapot, trembling fingers desperate to grasp its handle. Just as my skin grazed the delicate porcelain, the room convulsed, the laughter grew frenzied and chaotic, morphing into screams that enveloped me like a suffocating blanket. Don't touch it! The child's voice warbled, now infused with desperation and fear. You have to leave, but it was too late. An invisible force pulled me toward the table, and the shadows erupted from the corners. Thick, clawing tendrils reached for me, almost like living sap, dragging me down into the abyss of malevolent joy. Join us. They beckoned in unison. Your tea is waiting, I screamed as the tendrils wrapped around my arms, securing me in place. With a forceful pull, I found myself yanked down onto the floor, cornered beneath the looming table where the gleam of the teapot taunted me with its shattered semblance of normalcy. Desperation clawed at my throat, and I raved against the slinking shadows encroaching upon me, fighting not just for my body but for my spirit. Just then, the teapot flickered, and from it poured an endless stream of dark, oily liquid that seeped toward me, eyeless faces emerging within its depths, distorted reflections of me, twisted and warped. I surged backward, horrified, and caught a glimpse of movement behind me. The child again. Only this time, they were closer, inches from my face, eyes wide and dark, filled with an ancient void. The child grinned wider, revealing rows of jagged teeth that burned with malevolence. And their small frame transformed, stretched, morphing into a gaunt figure, drenched in shadows and festering wrath. Stay with us. They screeched, a chilling hunger in their voice. You'll never be alone again. The room echoed with their laughter, the cries of 100 spirits jumbled into one malignant chorus as every candle flickered out, plunging me into thick darkness. An overwhelming dread enveloped me. I could feel the suffocating atmosphere closing in like a vice. And then, just as I thought the shadows would claim me, the whisper returned, tinged with blood-curdling pleasure. You've invited them in, let's see how much they love you. In that instant of acute terror, a sudden force slammed against my back, tossing me into the brewing chaos. A silhouette swarmed over me, darkness coiled around my throat once again, and the child's voice surged above all. Your own heart is the key, the final invitation. With the last of my strength, I screamed a desperate denial. The shadows constricted, vibrating with anticipation, And just as I felt the world slip away, my own voice added to their clamor, echoing back, "I will not join you." But in that moment of defiance, the night unfurled like a terrifying bloom of despair, swallowing me whole until the darkness shattered into a deafening silence, and I found myself suspended on the brink of oblivion. And as I fell deeper into that chasm, I heard the child one last time, soft and haunting, "Remember, there is always a price for freedom. What will you sacrifice?" And then all went black, with the sound of the teapot shattering echoing through nothingness, a prelude to an even darker revelation awaiting me on the other side of despair. A sharp gasp pierced the silence, and I awoke, sprawled on a damp stone floor, surrounded by walls that pulsed with a faint, sickly glow. Panic surged as I scrambled to my feet, the memory of the shadows still clinging to me like a smothering shroud. I took a moment to steady myself, heart racing. Where was I? The air felt cold and heavy, saturated with moisture that clung to my skin like a warning. Where was the house? Had I escaped its malevolence or crossed into a darker realm? My mind reeled, grasping at threads of sanity as the pain in my throat reminded me of the choked whispers that had sought to claim my soul. Looking around, I saw that I was in what appeared to be a dank cellar, far removed from the comforting domesticity of the rooms above. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting jittery shadows that danced erratically along the stone walls. The room smelled of mildew and decay, but what struck me the most was the pervasive feeling of being washed. I could almost feel ice boring into my back, but every time I glanced around, there was nothing, only the persistent echoes of my own breath. The flickering lights finally stabilized, revealing strange etchings carved into the stone, symbols I didn't recognize, but which made my skin crawl as if they held some terrible secret. Sudden rustling emerged from a darkened corner, jerking me from my thoughts. My heart hammered violently in my chest. "Hello." I called out, trying to sound brave, though my voice trembled. Silence answered, heavy and foreboding. With slow, deliberate steps, I approached the source of the noise, dread pulling in the pit of my stomach. As I peered around the corner, the shadows seemed to thicken, swirling together in a retreating dance. Forcing myself to take another breath, I pushed forward with trepidation. That's when I saw a remnant of a broken, dusty cradle sitting abandoned in the gloom. My pulse quickened as I stooped closer. It was old, with cracks running through the wood, yet eerily, something about it felt alive, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. And then it hit me: the cradle had been rocked recently. New scratches marred its surface, and I could feel the unmistakable presence of warm, discarded air that lingered close. Someone or something had been here. From the depth of my memory surfaced an image of the child, the creature who tormented me with invites. Instinctively, I stumbled back, shaking my head, desperate to shake the thought. "You're safe," I murmured to myself, yet the words broke apart like brittle glass. I turned away, unwilling to look deeper into my own terror. Behind me, the shadows twisted and coiled, and with each passing moment, an oppressive weight pressed down, like a predator drawing near. I needed to escape this cellar, to find a way out and banish whatever entity was pursuing me. Still in myself, I continued searching for an exit. As I weaved between old barrels and stacks of decomposing wood, my foot stumbled on something softer, mass that rolled under the weight of my shoe with a sickening squish. I crouched down, my stomach churning. It was a small door, its once innocent face now marred by what looked like dried blood, its glassy eyes locked in a frozen gaze filled with betrayal. I felt nauseous and shifted away, but then the shadows reacted. They surged forward, flooding the room like a tide. The air thickened, and the sound of small feet pattering echoed uncomfortably close, mingling with hysterical laughter. "Don't you want to play?" A chorus of voices sang, sweetly taunting. "We've waited so long for you." Frantic, I dashed toward what appeared to be a flight of stairs leading up, but paused as the saccharine tones twisted in my mind, blurring into something sinister. I felt the malice of countless dark eyes upon me, the echoes of laughter morphing into agonized wails that pulled at the threads of my sanity. It felt like I was being drawn towards something horrifying, compelled to witness a festering nightmare I couldn't comprehend. As I reached the bottom of the staircase, I hesitated, dread pulling in my veins. What lay above? Beyond that threshold, would I find freedom, or were the phantoms just waiting for my next mistake? I remember the child's voice, laced with cruelty and sympathy. You have to leave. But I hated my options. Each pulled me deeper into a spiraling abyss of dread. I did not want to be a plaything, yet the thrill of exploration tugged at me like a string twisted around my heart. I took a step, the echoes of laughter swelling, and as I leaned closer to the door, ready to grasp the handle, something cold, whispering, and insistent brushed against the hairs on the back of my neck. Then, a shadow flickered to life, and I turned just in time to see multiple figures coalescing right behind me, twisted and elongated, entities of pure malice smiling grotesquely with those sharp-toothed grins. Playtime is just beginning, the chorus sang, and suddenly, the door swung open with a violent jerk, revealing blinding light beyond. I stood paralyzed, caught between two walls, the light promising escape and the darkness whispering of endless peril. And then with chilling synchrony, the shadows lunged, clawed hands reaching, and everything shattered into chaotic screams as light engulfed me whole before darkness finally reclaimed me once more. "Would you like some tea?" echoed back, and then I knew I was never alone. I awoke once more, this time not on damp stone but a sprawling landscape of twisted foliage and grotesque undergrowth, the air thick with the scent of rot. Disoriented, I struggled to piece together the fragments of reality, the light of the sun above swirling with the memories of choking darkness. The ground exuded a soft, pulpy texture beneath me, reminiscent of decaying leaves, and a quiet hum vibrated through the air, a sound that felt both natural and deeply unsettling. A brutal laugh pierced the silence, snapping my head toward the crystalline trees that loomed around me. Silvery leaves trembled as if responding to some unseen whisper, but when I squinted into the light that filtered through the branches, I could make out faint, shifting forms, flickers of shadow against the brilliance. This was no ordinary forest. It felt alive, almost ancient, its very essence tainted by that lingering presence of evil. "Come play," boomed a voice, lush with both sweetness and menace. It echoed through the air, twisting and spiraling like smoke. My heart raced as the laughter flitted around me, no longer confined to one location. It felt as if the shadows were dancing, teasing me, watching with hungry eyes. "Stay away!" I shouted, the desperation in my voice betraying my fear. But the laughter only grew, a cacophony of delight mingled with mockery. Each note reverberated off the trees, sending ripples through the carpet of dead leaves and bare earth. For a fleeting moment, I believed I could turn around, bolt back into the clutches of the cellar, but the thought sent a shiver of dread gnawing at my resolve. Instead, I stumbled forward, my instincts kicking in, urging me to escape this nightmare. But the forest seemed to shift beneath my feet, each direction I turned feeling deliberately chosen by something unseen, an entity pulling strings, compelling me deeper into its web. "Don't you want to see?" The voice rang out again, now softer, almost coaxing as it melted into the rustling leaves. "They are waiting, your friends are waiting." And with those words, a pang of longing twisted in my chest, an inexplicable urge to follow the playful summons echoing through the woods. "Stop!" I yelled again, balling my fist, forcing the detachment of desperation. Yet, a part of me betrayed my will, drawn to the sound of distant giggles that fluttered like butterflies in spring. Each note unspooled threads of memory, hazy flashes of forgotten laughter and warmth waiting for me somewhere, a childhood lost to the void, where innocence danced freely. I pushed against the compulsion, refusing to relent, but the deeper I walked into the underbrush, the more tangled the trees became. Roots snaked across pathways like elongated fingers grasping out for me, their touch ice cold against my skin. I could almost hear them begging, whispering to me in a language I couldn't decipher. Suddenly, a burst of cold air surged past me, and something slithered right at my feet, a serpentine creature made entirely of shadow, its form indistinct yet eerily blacker than the darkness around us. My breath caught in my throat, and an instinctual scream ripped through the air. The creature stopped, poised, and straightened, its eyes mere voids of despair reflected back at me. With a violent snap, it lunged closer, brushing against my face like a winter chill. I could feel its malice, the pure intent to draw me in, and I slapped my hands against my cheeks, trying to ward off the breath of death. But then came the laughter again, sweet and childlike. My mind was a whirlpool of confusion, a struggle between the fragile flicker of hope against the encroaching darkness that begged me to play. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye caught my attention, and I spun around just as a figure flitted between the trees, a child with wild, tangled hair and wide, dark eyes. There was a cruel innocence in their expression, a grin stretching too wide for their face. "You want to join us, don't you?" Their voice chimed, resonating in the depth of my soul, shifting from sweet to sharp out of desperation. I replied, sputtering through shaking breaths, I can't. You don't understand." But the child took a step back, revealing behind it a small gathering of other figures, all watching me with those same haunting grins. Each face was blurred, as if my mind fought against the horror of truly seeing them. "But we've waited so long for you," they chorused, their voices intertwining to create a melody of longing and despair. I backed away, realizing the roots below me were now twisting upward, snaring my feet, anchoring me in place as panic surged. I couldn't breathe. I was caught in their gaze, feeling the weight of their expectation. The forest shuddered around me, alive and acutely aware of the terror I was trying to mask. The child's eyes ignited with a gleeful malice, and I felt the shadows conjoin, swirling around me, tightening their grip. "Let's play forever," they sing-songed, laughter rising to a crescendo, and I felt the memory of my own childhood slip away as it embraced me. Suddenly, the forest roared in response, the jubilant voices echoing louder, pulsating with insatiable hunger. The ground trembled violently, and I screamed as the roots entwined tighter, sending splintering pain coursing up my legs. Just before the darkness swallowed me whole, I glimpsed the faces again, no longer playful, no longer innocent, each chiseled with the anguish of lost souls, their expressions warped with desire and thirst. As the darkness finally closed in, I felt the ground crumble beneath me, swallowed into an abyss where the laughter continued, relentless and haunting. Then came a whisper, soft yet triumphant, "You won't escape, we'll always be here." And suddenly, it all went black. I woke again, though not to the gentle caress of sunlit warmth, but to a bone-chilling cold that crept into my very bones. I lay on the damp earth, a muddy patch stained darker with the sip of stale water. Struggling to rise, I flicked the remnants of merciless shadows from my skin, but their residue clung to me, sticky, chilling, inescapable. The laughter echoed still, a fading whisper on the horizon, but I could feel its pulse strumming beneath the earth, intertwined with the very fabric of the place I found myself in. My heart raced, and panic flared fresh. I was compelled to move, to break this oppressive stillness. Pain radiated from my ankles, where the roots had gripped me with a vice-like hold. I took a hesitant step, the scorching mud sending a sense of dread spiraling through me as if the ground itself was alive, aware and displeased. In the distance, the trees appeared to shimmer, their bark glistening wetly, and I was drawn toward them. My footfalls felt muted, swallowed by the mire, but the world around me pulsed with an eerie life that called out to me. I strained to listen, heart hammering in my chest. This forest was a trap, a living entity that beckoned, taunted, and watched. "Come back to us," a voice danced through the fog, laced with sweetness yet veiled in something insidious. It wasn't simply the children, it was the forest itself, pleading, desperate. Shadows flitted between the trunks, darting just beyond my line of sight, always teasing, always hiding. I stumbled forward uneasily, propelled by a dread curiosity. The twisted paths seemed to rearrange themselves, forming a winding maze with no exit. "Mommy. Daddy. I'm scared." An innocent call echoed, a crystal chime that shattered the stillness. My own heart stuttered in an agonizing response. It was a voice I recognized, the sound tearing through my mind like shattered glass, fracturing the carefully constructed barriers I had built. "Help me." The child's distress seared through my resolve, igniting a fierce determination to save whoever had cried out. "Where are you?" I called back, driven by the instinct to protect, the remnants of love battling against the overhanging dread. I pushed forward, weaving through the spectral trees that towered like silent sentinels and looming giants, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers against the dull light. The haze thickened. I could almost hear whispers cascading through the leaf, sobs and laughter intertwined, a haunting melody of longing that clawed at my heart. Ahead, shimmering filaments of light brightened, guided me through the fog, illuminating a small clearing. But as I broke through, blinding rays illuminated figures sprawled upon the cold earth. Children lay there, motionless, eyes shut as if they were simply sleeping. My throat constricted. Horrified, I recognized one child's face, a familiar figure framed in tangled hair and dirt-smudged skin. My little brother. No. Jeremy. I fell to my knees, reaching for him, my own breath quickening with panic. I shook him gently, desperation pulling in my chest. His eyelids fluttered, revealing irises that had lost their spark, reflecting unyielding voids. I suddenly felt tethered to those blank stares, the ground trembling beneath my kneecaps as if protesting my presence. Wake up. Please. From the corner of my eye, the shadows shifted again, curling and merging, whispering and giggling, growing closer. The laughter grew louder, twisting and intertwining with the cries of the children around me. Join us. Wake up, they beckoned with false sweetness, their delight now a cacophony, a riot dancing above the silent bodies lying beneath. With a jolt, Jeremiah's eyes snapped open, locking onto mine, the same dark void stretching deep within. Panic swelled inside me. His mouth twisted into a familiar grin, far too wide and too unnatural. I found them, sis. I found them all, he said, voice dripping with a sickening sweetness that froze my blood. He reached for my hand, fingers stretching, impossibly long and twisted, fingers that resembled roots grasping hungrily at the earth around me. The other children began to stir, eyes opening to mirror an abyss even darker than the forest. I scrambled back, heart pounding with pure terror. I wanted to run, but the roots had returned, constricting around my ankles, pulling me towards the mass of grinning faces. Come play with us forever, Jeremiah's voice echoed eerily, blending with the laughter that echoed from those skeletal trees. We've been waiting for you. The ground shuddered again, a violent tremor that echoed through the air, rumbling deep from its center. Tendrils of shadow reached out, gripping my wrist, dragging me closer to my brother, to the children. I looked behind me, wanting to flee, wishing desperately to break away from their grasp, from the sinister joy that paused in the forest, but the shadows tangled tighter, and before I could scream, they roared, a sound both terrible and magnificent, the cacophony swallowing my cries. You won't escape, not now, not ever, the forest sang, melding every voice into one glorious outpouring of eager anticipation. And just as I felt the darkness creeping up my arms, fully enveloping my body, I caught a glimpse of the bright heavens just above the treetops. I was no longer in that clearing, I wasn't even in my own body. I looked at the world, my heart pounding one last time as I realized my own eyes were hiding in the shadows they had called home. I felt the ground rip away beneath me, the laughter mixing with sorrow as I surrendered to their embrace, lost within the abyss, a captive soul in a nightmare without end. Where once I was, now only echoes remained. The forest had claimed another. And in the distance, I could hear them whispering my name. The soft rustling of leaves stirred me awake, a gentle caress that carried an unsettling Promethean echo of my own laughter, mingled with the whispers of wind. I opened my eyes, or at least I tried. It felt as if my eyelids were sewn shut, weighted and bound by an invisible thread. Panic surged, and I thrashed, tearing at the seams that clung to my skin. It was dark all around, but not the suffocating darkness of oblivion. No, this darkness breathed, pulsated, and lived. Suddenly, my eyes flickered open against the persistent night, and the world transformed around me. I was not in the clearing anymore. Instead, I found myself in a cramped room, the walls lined with thick, twisted roots rising like ancient serpents from the floorboards. Shadows danced in the corners, flickering and sliding, and the air, laden with damp earth and decay, clung to me like a shroud. Welcome back, a sing-song voice floated through the musty air, ricocheting off the walls. I turned to see a figure cloaked in shadows, features obscured but for a glimmer of eyes that glowed a ghastly green. "I've been waiting for you." It was the voice of the forest, the heart of the sinister laughter, the lure of innocence wrapped in malice. I tried to rise but found I was anchored to the ground, roots entwined around my legs like constricting vines. I twisted, the wooden tendrils swirling painfully tighter, and a gasp escaped me, part fear, part realization. This was no mere room, it was a prison, a vessel of all the lost souls that the forest had consumed. "Let me go," I cried, fighting against the grasp of the roots that threatened to pull me into their dark embrace. "Where is Jeremy? What did you do to him?" The figure stepped closer, the smile lurking in the depths of the shadows. "Oh, sweet child. He's part of us now, just like all of them. They were chosen, just like you. You can't escape your destiny." The voice turned sinister, twisting my own emotions until they morphed into something grotesque. Panic clawed at my throat as I realized I had failed to save my brother, to break free from the malevolence that thrived in this wretched place. My heart drummed a frantic lullaby, drowning out rational thought, and I summoned every ounce of strength to wrest my legs free. But the roots only sank deeper, that sweet, deceptive laughter swelling around me like a cruel symphony. "Join us," a chorus of voices hummed from the dark corners, pleading and demanding all at once. "Forever in the shadows. Forever in the laughter. Come play with us." The room shifted, walls breathing, pulsing with a heartbeat of their own. I caught glimpses of faces, lost children peering from the engulfing shadows, their eyes reflecting a haunting sadness that clawed at my own heart. They were all trapped, just like me, wrapped in this living nightmare, binding their own stories into the intricate web of despair. No. I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat. "You are lying. I won't be like you. I refuse." A surge of resistance surged through me, fueled by desperation and the remnants of love for my brother. With a wild twist of my body, I felt the roots loosen for just a heartbeat. I lunged toward the door, fingers grasping for the thick wooden frame that offered a glimmer of hope. It stood ajar, but images of Jeremy flooded my mind, haunting and desperate. I could not abandon him, I could not let this malevolent force steal another soul. "Why do you resist?" The shadowed figure hissed, the sing-song voice now laced with venomous ire. "You can't fight what you're meant to be. Stay with us, and we can be family." The roots recoiled, then surged, reclaiming their hold on my legs and pulling me back. My heart raced as I felt the energy shift around me, a gust of wind clamoring through the tiny space, wrapping around the tendrils like a tender caress. The shadows flickered, momentarily disturbed, and for just a moment, I saw a flicker of something, a figure standing in the doorway. It was blurred and shapeless, but it radiated warmth in a world teetering on the brink of despair. "Help!" I screamed like a child, raw desperation creeping back into my voice. "Please." The figure remained motionless, the darkness swirling around it, but I felt a flicker of emotion course through the stillness. They felt my terror and my bewildered longing. But in that moment of hope, the roots seized tightly again, unwilling to lose their grasp. "No one can help you now," the shadowed figure said. "You are ours, a thread woven into the tapestry of our world. All light fades here." The shadows closed in, hungry and yearning, and just as I felt the last remnants of my will slip away, the figure at the door stepped forward, revealing a face I recognized through the veil of darkness, the ghastly reflection of my own. As if in a mirror, I saw my connection to the horrors I had desperately sought to escape, and then it clicked. My scream caught in my throat as the realization cowed around my mind who I truly was in this nightmare. The darkness chuckled, dark and rich, a haunting melody riding the wind as it seeped into the very marrow of my being. I had become one with the forest, a whisper among shadows, and suddenly, I felt the boiling anticipation of the hunt awaken within me. I was not just the hunted, I was the hunter. But before I could comprehend this horrific transformation, the figure spoke again, its voice laden with an echo of dread. "Welcome home, sister." As the shadows moved eagerly around me, the roots tugged me deeper into their embrace, and I saw, out of the corner of my eye, the gleam of a doorway slamming shut. The laughter crescendoed, wild and delirious, and I felt the pulse of my new identity solidify as the forest roared its welcome. There was no going back. And somewhere, in the depths of tangled branches, Jeremiah's joyful laughter intertwined with mine, as we prepared to greet yet another unwitting soul drawn into our nightmarish dance forever. The oppressive silence swallowed me as I hovered in that unholy place. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred, an eternal limbo where light and dark melded in sinister harmony. I felt it then, the insatiable hunger bubbling forth in a whisper, faint yet chilling, the ever-present pulse of the entity that had claimed my brother and so many others. Every heartbeat echoed through the halls of the manor, reverberating with laughter that sang nature's cruelest lullaby, but now, something had shifted. It was like a siren song, calling me into the depths of despair. Yet, unlike the joyful harmony of my brother's laughter, the beckoning of innocence twisted by malevolence, it was an invitation shrouded in familiar shadows. Now you can truly understand, it whispered, its words calling around my consciousness like smoke, intoxicating and suffocating. I didn't need to ask what it meant. I was beginning to perceive the truth beneath layers of grim revelations. My limbs trembled, not from fear, but from a peculiar thrill of understanding. With a feverish need for clarity, I closed my eyes, surrendering to the entity's words, the darkness wrapping around me like a mother's embrace, welcoming and deceptive. Visions swallowed, a torrent of flickering memories replayed within me. I saw myself as a child, wandering the beloved woods behind our house, chasing after wildflowers, lost in innocent delight. But the image shifted. I was in a room filled with dolls, their lifeless eyes and porcelain smiles dead against an encroaching dark. I felt their whispers become more urgent, strained through murmurs of childlike laughter. Join us, the voices coalesced, echoing through the sinews of my thoughts, and I struggled to anchor myself against the wave of despair. You have the gift, the ability to reshape this world, to embrace what you were destined to become. Laughing faces transformed, turning grotesque, yearning, and beckoning me closer. Enough. I screamed, summoning the flicker of defiance that still lingered beneath the layers of darkness. But my words laced with desperation were nothing in the face of the insatiable entity. It hungered, I could taste it in the air. And then came the pull, an undeniable urge urging me to lessen my grip on reality and embrace the fate that awaited. Together, we will forge a new path, it whispered. A chorus of shadows, forever woven together beneath the looming silhouettes of trees. And just like that, the notion of separating myself from it all dissolved, the hard walls I had constructed trembling under the corrosive song. And something terrible unlocked within me, something that knew what it meant to belong, to be part of something larger than myself. I felt the pull strengthen as the room constricted around me, leaving no room to breathe, its fabric trapping sirens of the abyss calling out. With one final surge of clarity, I envisioned myself standing before the children, my brother, the faceless merging into the void of shadows, becoming one. They craved freedom, but did they truly understand what lay in store? A moment stretched endlessly, a heartbeat suspended before a descent into oblivion. At last, I gave in, surrendering, letting the darkness cloak me fully. As I embraced my place in that realm of vulnerability, the hushed whispers erupted into a feverish chant, a choir of souls echoing my fate. A heat kindled inside, their malicious energy cresting toward pure ecstasy. I laughed. No, cacodans surged ahead, a cold, twisted joy flooding my veins. The last vestiges of light flickered and vanished. Yet, the darkness now illuminated my path me home. The children surged forth, their faces illuminated by grotesque joy and longing as we spiraled together, not just as mere spirits but as an unstoppable force. In that moment, as my laughter mingled with theirs, I knew the truth. This was not just my fight, it was my rebirth. And far beneath my consciousness, I felt the true entrapment calling tighter. I was the darkness and extension of this corrupted existence. The laughter crescendoed into an unstoppable, unholy tide, but then, a shifting in. The atmosphere made the air thick with tension, freezing my joy. A familiar voice echoed against the void. Help us. It was Jeremy, tugging on the strings of my heart. How naive, I thought, the echo of sibling love drowned out by the cacophony of shadows. My heart constricted. So close, yet so far. I reoriented, eyes narrowing as I grasped the shadow of what I had become. But the moment I directed my gaze back to the depths that had birthed me, the thrill of evil coursing through my veins began to morph. Jeremon's voice broke through, soft yet impervious, a haunting reminder that even in despair, hope still existed. What will you sacrifice? The entity queried, a wicked smile creeping into its tone, pulling me back toward the seductive embrace of my dark destiny, and just like that, the reality warped again. The illusion shattered, revealing layers upon layers of sorrow, entangled in desperate yearning. I clutched my head, mind reeling from the weight of it all. A single thought emerged through the chaos, crisp and piercing. I will not give in. As the shadows lunged, I fought back. In those final, fraught moments, everything collided me past, the whispers of the children, Jeremon's pleading voice blending into a tapestry of despair I seldom felt. I burst forth into light, a lone scream roaring from my lips, echoing through the corridors of time, into eternity. They wouldn't win. I would find Jeremy. I would rip him free, but as I surged forward into the blinding brightness, a chilling realization gripped me. Sometimes whom we save is never the one who needs saving. With one last magnificent effort, I thrust myself into the heart of the glow only to discover, upon collision, a single, unyielding truth. The child grinned back at me, and all the laughter fell silent. The final twist collapsed around me. Welcome home, it whispered, the shadows swirling in unison, and I understood this was not just the beginning, but a reckoning. And somewhere in the darkness, echoes shivered with my name, growing louder, drawing out laughter as a chorus of familiar voices suffocated me once more. In the end, I was not the one chasing the shadows, I had become one of them. As the void enveloped, the last words I heard before silence claimed me were hauntingly clear, help us. And now, I would do their bidding forever, an echo in the shadows, forever in the dark.